Good morning. Our hand today is going to be pocket queens. We're in the small blind here. Everyone folds to us, and we open raise. I open raise pretty widely from the small blind. Any suited card, we're at like over 50% of the time. I'm just trying to steal it, steal the pot, take it down. There will be times when I also add in these offsuit connectors, offsuit one gappers, jacks, all of the offsuit kings. And there's a time where it might just be 100%. But again, it's, this villain, it's new villain, 8 hands. Kind of tough to say what he'll do, how often he'll fold. So I'm just going to go with, my average range. Villain does call. It's going to be tough to judge what he has because he's a new player, but I'm going to go with something like this. I think this is often typical of, I'm going to get rid of these, typical of some of the players. This is a 25 NL, so players might be a little bit better. Some of these players do dip down to 10 NL, but by and large, they play broadways. You play your pocket pair, you play your suited aces, suited kings, offsuit aces. You play some connectors, offsuit connectors, suited one gappers, but you don't typically see a lot of junk down here. You typically don't see a lot of junk down here. Now, would he raise? Yeah, I kind of expect him to raise some of these hands. So I'm going to say I expect him to raise those types of hands. Maybe he would raise more, but I think I'm just going to go with that. So the flop comes out. 10-8-6, and this could hit our range pretty easily because we're so wide. We could have flopped straight. Could be flopping, flush, straight flush draw. Could be flopping a lot of that stuff. We could be flopping a lot of that stuff, and the question is, if I bet, how often does he fold, or how often does he continue? I'm going to say he's probably continuing. I think a lot of these players would continue with all pairs, even those small pairs. They're going to be calling with your open enders, your flush draws. Maybe your gut shots. We'll leave the gut shots. All right, so we're looking at like continuing 74.9%, which means he's folding 25%. I think we're going to be a little bit more aware of what hands we c-bet. We're not c-betting everything. I think that would kind of be somewhat, ridiculous, burning money. Yet at the same time, we still have to keep the pressure on because he could have called with like broadways and decide to fold, or he could have, with those small pocket pairs, could have decided to fold those. I left them in because I think usually when you bet on a board like this, pocket pairs will call because they don't believe you, and then they'll fold to a turn barrel. So depending on what card comes, if any card over than a 10 comes, I think we could easily fire again ace, king, queen, jack, and that's going to apply a lot of pressure to him. Obviously, in that situation, if they call, then we're probably going to be done with the hand unless we improve. Now that's done with the hand with all of our bluffs and stuff. With our queens, we're just going to have to see what the run out looks like. So I think we're betting, top pair. I think middle pair could be check call. I think some of these middle pairs, bottom pairs, pocket pair below the boards could be a check call, but I think pocket pair below the board is probably better as a bluff. Same thing with bottom pair. Middle pair's kind of like that in between. Nines. We've got draws that we're including, so I think we're c-betting something like that, and we're going to be c-betting probably like on the lower side 3. Half pot, maybe 2.5. I bet GTO suggests we can check here because again, this really does hit his range. we don't have any like big cards where we would have our, where we would smash it. Like we don't have any, jacks, queens, kings, aces where we're gonna have our trips. We could have trips with tens, but so can they. We could have eights, so can they, and so forth. We don't have that like trip hands that we have, but they don't. So I'm sure this could be a mixed strategy. So in some cases we could easily check, go for a check call, or even check raise. I think straights would be a check raise. I don't think they'd be a check call. I think sets probably prefer a bet. It's going to be real low percentage. We're talking 10% maybe of sets. I wouldn't like to check with sets or with two pair. I think over pair, top pair could be justified as a check call. Same thing with like nines and eights. And those would all be at a lower frequency. I think you would get these as well. Pocket pair less than pocket second card for our check calls. 2, 3, 4, 5. It feels weak, but I don't know how many cards are going to actually come to improve. I think the runouts are going to be looking bad for us. I think the runouts look bad for us. So probably something like that. And I think what we're looking at is these types of flush plus pair, gut shot plus pair. We're looking at those combo draws. That's what we're looking at. So I think all of these could have been even some of our nut flushes. We'll take all of those out. So at some frequency, we could always be at these. I feel like I'm forcing my hands here, but I think I kind of understand why I may have done this, because I'm looking. If I bet and he just folds, I don't get any more money. But if I check and I let him bet, we can get a little something. So I kind of understand that. Now, after I check, what would he bet? Would he bet these pairs? Maybe. I think he'd bet those draws. Maybe the ace high hands. We'll keep those same hands as possibly betting. And I called. So 3 hearts. That's actually one of the good cards that could come. So if we c-bet, we would probably c-bet barrel again with our value hands and with our draws. I think we would get out those low pairs. I think we would get out, the sixes, the overcards that we're calling, just to see if they could improve. But once we checked, I think we check again. And now villain checks. So at this point, I don't think he has any of those. We're going to give him that. No made hands. I think something like that. So at this point, once that check happened, I'm going to be pretty confident that I'm currently ahead. Then the ace of clubs comes, and it's not my favorite card because it completes flush and it gives that ace any of the ace x hands now an over card. Do I think he's betting with ace? No, probably not. I think that kind of hits our range. So the question is, do I get more money if I bet now and get called by some of the weaker pairs, or would it be better if I just check call? I think it's probably just check call. I think if we bet, I think there's going to be a less chance that he'll call with these pairs. I think he'll just fold because he can clearly see he's behind to the ace, he's behind to the flush. Although the ace comes out, so there's less likely to be ace x out there. And I think that's the bonus, but I think the flush is what's going to be scary. So I kind of like the check a little bit better. And I think probably same thing, just checking all of our good hands. And then if there's a bet, I think we're calling with probably going down a middle pair. I don't think I'm bluff catching with nines. I think this is our cutoff. So I think I'm check calling with all of those. I think if he bets, he's betting probably those and maybe as a bluff. So he checks behind, which means I think he's probably something like that. Let's get that fixed. And I show queens and he shows jack nine. So he had the open ender, which I have in his range. That's part of that nothing. So it kind of makes sense how he played it. He bet small. He was on a draw. I don't know if I have notes on him. I called from blinds. Yeah, it makes sense. But what we'll do is we'll add notes to him. So BVB, call SB3 big blind RFI with jack 9 off. And then he bet, check. On a 10 club, 8 of clubs, 6 of spades, 3 hearts, ace of clubs. And he bet small. Let's see here, maybe 25%. All right. So I think we could have gotten a little bit more value from this hand if we had c-bet. I think we c-bet, he calls, and our c-bet would have been larger. And then I think we barrel the turn. He calls again. Rivers the ace. We check. If he bets, we probably call. I think it'd be tough for us to fold because we open ourselves up to the bluff, and I think all of those straights miss. Even if he has 5-7, he misses. Jack 9 misses. Jack Queen misses, even though we've got the queen. And we take note that he is capable of bluffing if we check to him on that river after running a double barrel. I don't think this is a good board for a triple barrel, not with our hand. Maybe if we have the straight draw, we could. But yeah, I think we'd get more value had we c-bet instead of playing this passive way, this checking. But I think checking is one of those mixed strategies that we probably could employ. I'd have to check some GTO. All right, hopefully you enjoy this. If you do, look tomorrow for another hand.